It's a big loss. I mean, he's a, top 10 first-round draft choice.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's
a big ding then.
That's a big ding.
And it's not just defense, special teams returning kicks.
That's a big dig.
Yeah, but like I said, I think it sounds like a system, so much more than a guy.
Yes.
And it's just been a system they've had since like 2014.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the big thing is the defense doesn't have takeaways like they have the last handful of years.
No, they just don't let shit happen.
You saw that correctly.
That's normally Matt's intro to a new show.
I just opened a new beer. Sorry.
All good. As you can tell, tonight's show is sponsored by Blue Moon and Miller Lite officially. Crown in the back as usual for me. Jed is still on water for another 4 days, 5 days, 7 days.
Well, Friday.
Sponsored by Aquafina.
I'll drink before the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll drink before the game?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Did you figure out yet, or are you going to be able to go to the game?
Well, I mean, I got tickets, yeah. I mean,
so that's a yes.
There's some extenuating family circumstances that hopefully doesn't happen. So
gotcha. Okay, cool. I couldn't remember what it was. Was now that you said it. Now I feel bad for bringing it up.
That's okay.
As you can tell, it is Fuck Iowa week or Shuck Iowa. If you missed out on getting one of these fine shirts offline, they won't be available after Friday. So go buy one. But before we jump into the fun fact about Iowa, which I'm sure you have.
Actually, I got nothing.
Delectable facts about Iowa.
Nothing about Iowa.
I wanted to ask Vegas if you
Iowa
watched.
Doesn't have anything about Iowa.
No. I'm sure you don't watch our show that
state.
frequently, but did you happen to hear about the interesting fact that we had from Michigan?
No.
And how Michigan just continues to deserve the Fuck Michigan moniker because they were the ones who actually came to South Bend and introduced the game of football to Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was like, I don't even remember what the.
So on top of Fuck Michigan, it's Fuck Notre Dame and Fuck Michigan again because they gave Notre Dame football.
Yeah, we invented the forward pass, I think. So you can thank that.
Yeah, you guys just suck dick all around.
We don't know what we don't know what the forward pass is
right now.
Yeah, you just throw it to the other team.
Yeah. Well, shit, you don't have any fun facts about Iowa?
No, it's Iowa.
Well, here's a fun fact for you. Baby Ferentz is officially gone after the whatever bowl game they play in this year.
Yeah.
That's a fun fact. So
just a funny fact.
Their quest for averaging 25 points a game is no more. We'll see what they're doing.
Wasn't even close. Did they get halfway there?
It was no more.
I think they're averaging like 18.3 or something like that.
Yeah, it was no more of a factor after like week 3. Like it was not going to happen.
But it's so crazy to me. Yeah, they're averaging 18.5 points. But their defense is only giving up 12.4. So you really you can do some things with that type of a margin.
It's the same. I say this every fucking time. Iowa is the same every year.
They really just exist to get in your way.
I'll tell you what their most valuable player is, and it's their punter.
Yep.
He is one of the best punters in the country.
Know about that.
If you can lock a guy down, put an offense inside the 5, a lot.
How many safeties do they have on the year? I know it's 3 or 4.
Safeties? No, they have like 2.
They have 2?
Yeah.
They only have 2. There's a lot of teams that are going to make it through the season without one. Nebraska's probably going to be one of them.
So
it might be how they win it.
I guess if you want a fun fact, since you're talking the punter, they have 3 games where they gained more. Iowa does where they gained more offensive yards than their punter kicked.
Oh yeah,
only 3 games.
For the season, he's outgained them.
Yes, well by far. If punting yards were the same as passing yards, Iowa's punter would rank 7th in the country in passing and 7th in yards per game.
That's insane stat.
I take everything that I'm trying to say back.
Think about how much you have to be punting every game in order to get that done.
He has 807 more punting yards than they do offensive yards.
Oh, my God.
Well, as it turns out, there's also just a lot of possessions in Iowa's games this year.
Yeah.
Well, there are.
No, you're absolutely right. And the thing is a punter is so critical if you have a stellar defense. Mm-hmm. I mean, dead serious.
Field position.
Yeah. And if you have that's
what's hurt us in several games.
And if you have an offense that's, can move it, this is why Georgia was so effective last year. Do I think they had an insane offense last year? Not insane, but their defense was so great. They were just limiting other teams' possessions, and the other teams were just getting worn out, and they were just starting to do whatever they want. Iowa obviously is not going to do that, but they're going to limit your possessions by trapping you, making you go further if you have to, and making you work harder. And that's what the punter does. So he's very valuable. That's why they're successful. I mean, that's why they're successful every year. Yeah, if they get an offensive coordinator that can do something, and with a quarterback that, do something that other than run the ball, throw it to your tight end, or run the ball. Every what's happening. So if they can mix it up in the future, maybe they will be successful. But like I said, that, when we were talking about that game and why I think Nebraska has the edge, it's just because it's just going to be like everything is on the table. And Iowa's going to be running that same mundane offense, run the ball. Try
not to make mistakes, get out of it without injuries.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're going to do. And I honestly think if Nebraska takes care of the football, which with Chubba behind the center, I think it can happen. They win by 10, 14 points. I believe that. It'd be like 16-2, but they'll win.
And that's kind of where I am with this game, is that it feels like the same thing that we saw last year, but now that we've seen that story once, everybody thinks it can't happen again. Last year, I think they had more to play for coming into this game because they still had the Big Ten championship game on the line last year.
Well, they would have gone if they would have beat us.
All they had to do was take care of business against us, and they were in control of their fate. Yep. And instead, Purdue went and got their dicks kicked in. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that I think is just, this is enough for Nebraska right now. Enough of we haven't been to a bowl game since 2016. We haven't, we got to get this monkey off our back. The talk all week so far has been, we need this extra practice. We need this extra time for development. We need this time, like Rhule went through on his press conference yesterday and listed off like 5 or 6 guys that he's so excited about getting an extra month of practice with, just because, he's like, I don't even give a shit about the bowl game.
Yep.
I want the extra practice time and the extra developmental time.
Yeah.
And you think about it and you're like, okay, well, think about what he was able to do with the spring training. Think about what he was able to do with fall camp and getting to add basically an extra one of those in there. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at 3 weeks extra in between a game, it's not like a normal game week where you're going to have to be running the ones with the ones the whole time. The way that they run practice and the way that they move everybody around all the time, you're going to be able to throw some of those guys, the younger, especially the developmental guys that are redshirted this year, into those maybe 1-rep spots for a couple more than they would normally in a game week. See how they go. See how they flow. See if they're really going to be a guy that you're going to be able to move forward with and develop in the future, or if they're going to be, maybe this is a test run and some of them it's like, maybe you haven't cut it this whole season and you're not cutting it now. It's a good time for you to go ahead and look into the portal this year.
Well, and typically what happens in those bowl practices, most teams, they'll spend one of the weeks, so like 5 of the practices, and they'll literally just practice the young guys as the ones on both sides of the ball, just to basically see what they got. Give them experience.
How much development you
because those other guys don't need the practice.
Yeah,
that type of practice.
They're
during
healing
that time
their bodies.
Exactly.
They're getting themselves
exactly,
and they're probably running full game speed simulations.
Yeah.
And you take that week off, you be able to come back, you get that extra development with them, especially if you think about, let's say Chubba goes out there and has another good game, and we win. Now all of a sudden the question is no longer, who's our quarterback next year that we're going to target in the portal? It's, do we maybe actually have that guy on the team already, and we just need to work with developing him? You talked about the fact that Braum was able to bring his quarterback to Louisville, and he had a guy who was already in the system, that already knew the system, ready to go, and he didn't have to work that whole offseason just to learn a playbook. Chubba's been riding the bench and running the scout team pretty much all season long, only doing the mental reps because he was hurt. And so you take a guy who already knows everything about the offense inside and out, or at least should, and now he's getting an opportunity to play 2 good back-to-back games, and he looks good. If he goes out and balls out in the bowl game, how does he not be that guy we look forward to most likely starting next year?
In my opinion, easily, we have to get at least 2 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I don't care.
No, I agree.
I'm not saying no to Chuba Purdy for next
his
year.
dick is still broken.
I'm not saying absolutely no to Chuba Purdy next year, but we have to get guys in here for the competition purposes.
I agree with you. I think, and that's just the way of the world now in college football. You got to have X amount of guys on scholarship at the quarterback position in the event that you have injuries, and then you have to think, who's transferring. Chuba looks like he's going to have
going to be available.
Yeah, if Chuba looks like he's going to be the guy, someone's gonna leave, and that's just the way of the world they want to play.
And that's going to be harmful, for lack of a better word. It might be a little too dramatic, but for somebody really good to come in, because it's going to look like Chuba's the guy. Well, a transfer quarterback with any quality is not going to want to come into a place where he's going to have a ton of competition.
But if your only competition is a quarterback with a broken dick, you got a pretty good chance.
He's going to get healthy. Jesus Christ.
No, the thing is, though, he is going to have off-season surgery, and he's going to be out of commission for like 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. So spring ball's not going to be a thing for him. It'll be very similar, actually, to the Casey Thompson situation last year. You're going to potentially go out and bring in Portal 1 or Portal 2 guys and be able to look at them in the spring and have no idea what Chuba's going to look like coming back in the fall.
With the difference of there's pretty much no risk of him leaving. Chuba's not going to go.
Well, he's eligible to because he's graduating in December.
Yeah, he's graduating.
So
he's graduating as a sophomore?
Well, it's his 4th year.
Yeah, he had a medical red shirt, a regular red shirt, and a COVID year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, Sam Hartman's been at Notre Dame for 19 years. So.
Yeah, he's basically
I forgot. He's got
he's basically Tom Brady.
Jesus Christ.
Speaking of Tom Brady, did you guys?
Oh my
did you guys
God.
see-
Jesus, no.
No, he was on. So he was on Stephen A. Smith's podcast
who
today.
cares?
No, listen to this.
I heard it.
No. Oh, you heard it? You already listened to it?
I did.
I thought it was actually pretty interesting, the statement that he made about how there's not any great college programs out there anymore, or not many, and that it's more of great college teams because of what the portal's done and how everybody's moving around, and you're not seeing a lot of great developmental programs out there, and he thinks that is creating a bunch of people that are coming into the NFL not ready for the NFL.
I agree with him.
When he said it, I was like, oh, shit. That's when you look at a situation like what happened with Mac Jones at the Patriots. Or you look at a situation with, what's his name out in, that went to San Francisco, the 3rd overall pick. Nobody can even remember his fucking name because he doesn't play anymore.
Oh, Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. He's riding Dallas's bench now. You look at situations like that and where there's not a developmental program in place anymore, like what Matt Rhule wants to build here. He doesn't want to go to the portal for 2 quarterbacks every year.
He does not want to build his program in the portal.
No, he doesn't want to do that at all. If I have to add a piece here or there to complete a unit, cool. But he doesn't want to be going out. Like I know that you don't like him as much as I do, but Danny Kaling coming out of Bellevue West, he's coming in with 2 4-star wide receivers that he's already playing with right now. Those guys are going to be on the roster with him next year. I don't think he's going to be ready to play year 1.
No.
But by year 2, 3, I expect to see him out there and see a quarterback that we can grow with and grow a team with to be a contending championship-style team for 2 or 3 years before he leaves. If that's the type of development that we can see and the type of development we can get to the type of program that Brady was talking about, which I think only really exists in like an Alabama or a Georgia right now, or Michigan for that matter.
Yeah, I don't know how you can look at a team looking at a chance at 3-peating and say that they don't have a good program, but
no,
in general, I think he's right.
His whole point was, though, that it's more about, you see these teams that are built on like a flash-in-the-pan type.
TCU last year, where they didn't really necessarily build that much through the portal, but the flash-in-the-pan portal-built teams that are going to be around for 1 or 2 years. And he brought this up on the heels of being asked about him working out with Shedeur Sanders and Dion at Colorado. So maybe it was a kind of talking more towards that, but I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know if you guys had heard that. I wanted to hear your opinion on it.
Well, in my opinion, but the world of college football is changing. And it's changing by the portal and NIL. And we talked about this in a previous show, you're gonna have program builders, but man, you got to execute like flawlessly, because your competence. I'll take the Big Ten for example. You got Nebraska developing guys or wanting to develop guys, and you've got a couple other teams like the Ohio States and Michigans that are developing guys, but you got teams like USC and Oregon that are just bringing in guys, and they're just bringing in key guys to just elevate your talent. So you're always going to be in the middle of the pack trying to develop guys, where these guys are just reloading at quarterback, reloading at receiver, because they can. And that's the challenge in the being, are you a devil's advocate on this? Yeah. It's just different.
You got to look at it from both sides.
Yeah. Kind of with what he said. I didn't really take anything of it because, like you said, college football is changing so much right now. I don't know that there's enough data points really available to really make that statement completely factual, because of the way the transfer portal is still a new concept as far as how we truly see it changing college football. And so I don't really know if programs are not developmental programs anymore or anything else like that. It's just different right now, and I don't know that there's enough data points for really to agree with Brady's comment.
As with everything, there's a bunch of changes, and then there's a settling period where we kind of figure out how to do this the right way.
Yeah.
And so
right now you still have the COVID year out there too.
Yeah.
It's fucking everything.
And
yes.
So I think we really just need to give coaches a chance to understand the NIL and the transfer portal, and then start to build programs again.
It'll be interesting to see if what he said as far, because he was talking about it more from a developmental standpoint to make players ready for the NFL. Like putting them through their program, their process, 3 years in college to get to an NFL ready body and mind and going. He said that he thought back when he went into the NFL, everybody was way more ready and able to take that next step. Not necessarily from a physicality standpoint. He doesn't think that's changed much. He's talking about from a standpoint of just mentally ready to take on what the NFL is in comparison to what you have in college.
Well, and for instance, what you said as far as the changing, and you brought up the NIL stuff, and that's the same concept as the transfer portal. I read this thing about Jim Mora Jr., who's the head coach at Connecticut right now. They're 2-9 this year. They had a bad season, but this quote from him, I was just like, this is college football right now. He said, we're a better football team than a worse record, and that's extremely frustrating, because you see where the world is going. So if we're going to play those teams and people want us to beat Duke, North Carolina State, Syracuse, and Maryland, and Wake Forest next year, then there needs to be a commitment monetarily to help us get the players that can beat them. Because if you're not going to help us get the players to beat them, then you are not entitled to bitch when we don't beat them. That's the cycle of NIL right now.
Yeah.
And that's still what you've been saying this for a couple of years now. We need the NIL, everybody's NIL, the chaos, and I hate it. I love it. I don't know. Just let it play out. Let it settle.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out exactly where we want to go with it.
Well, I think it's interesting to hear. I liked all of that, except for the last sentence. If you're not going to do that, you're not entitled to bitch. Fuck you. I'm a fan. I support the team by buying jerseys. I support the team by
He was talking to the big time guys.
No. I get that.
He wasn't talking to everybody.
But the big time guys aren't the ones out there chirping all over Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, making your life hell on the streets.
But they're bitching to the athletic director to maybe put some pressure on him.
That's fair. That's fair. And that's totally different. You don't release a public statement for some shit like that. Unless you're really going after a guy and you want him to hear it. I think that it's unfair to expect the common fan to just now start donating to NIL collectives and things like that. It also sounds like NIL collectives are probably going bye-bye after this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal issues with those right now.
You mean they're not boosters? Weird. Just a different name for boosters.
So weird.
It's not quite.
It's really not NIL.
Well, and one of the bigger things is some of the guys that are running these collectives are shiesty
Just
as fuck.
sleazeballs.
Yeah.
There's one in Lincoln.
That's a whole different podcast for.
But yeah, that's all I had about that. Did you come up with anything else about Iowa?
No.
Nothing else about Iowa?
All the weird stats that I saw about fun facts about Iowa had to do with different programs and the fucking Mississippi River. Like, it was stupid.
Oh, I thought maybe it was a butter thing or the fact that they don't have any national championships. I was just checking on that.
That's just my favorite fact about Iowa.
Anyway, fuck Iowa. Who's on the defense this week?
I got the defense.
You got the defense.
I got the defense.
So are you just going to slap a giant dong on the table and say they're good?
Well, they're good. Here's the thing. Their defense is good in spite of their offense. The biggest thing that jumped out to me is that for the top 5 teams in the Big Ten, they've defended close to 100 plays more than the rest of the teams.
Damn.
Holy shit.
They are what just happened? Sorry.
Your computer just say no.
Yeah.
It literally said
Because
no.
you're talking Iowa.
I just saw it. It said permission
It
denied.
was something else. Anyway.
403
It's one of those where
permission
you
denied.
Google search Iowa football and the only thing that comes up is why.
Yeah.
It was also on. It was on audio, and it also typed the big old dong when I said that. So sorry about it.
It was already in recent search history. It's not a big deal.
Jesus Christ!
They lost their stud safety in practice
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
They
A couple
did.
weeks ago, yeah.
Getting back into just plays per game, they've defended 774 this year. The next closest team that's any good is 697. Like, it's just
Damn.
Jesus Christ!
their offense is so bad that their defense is making up the slack, and they've still allowed the second fewest yards per play by .01, and that's up against Ohio State.
Think about your conditioning at that point to have that many more plays under your belt and be able to stay in those games like that. That's fucking crazy.
If you really want to shit your pants, look at what they're doing just in November. So they're averaging about 290 yards total per game on the season. They're only averaging giving up 192 yards in November per game. It's their
Who
defense.
have they played though?
I haven't looked at their schedule. I can pull it up, but
Illinois.
Yeah,
They,
Illinois, Rutgers, Northwestern, and Minnesota. Not exactly juggernauts.
no, but 192 yards a game regardless.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. The only reason that I had any sort of question about their punter until you guys got into it was because they have a linebacker who has 133 fucking tackles on the year.
Jesus,
And he's number 2 in the
Christ.
country.
And he's number 2 in the country.
Behind who?
Guy for I'm brain farting. He has like 165 tackles on the season.
I
This guy
thought
does.
91 last week was a high number. No, this dude.
Hopefully, it's not like it was last week when the best defender and the best tackler on the team goes out in the late second quarter,
And they get
and
better?
then their defense gets better somehow.
It's a linebacker for Old Dominion, by the way, who's number 1.
Yeah.
He's not the only one. They also
So he's
have
the only quality player on the whole field when he plays football. Got it.
their other interior linebacker has 87 on the year. Like they're those two dudes. There's nothing going on in the middle of the field. It's insane. Outside of that, they don't do a ton as far as turnovers go. They don't take away that many. They don't give up that many. There's not a ton of flashiness to their defense. They're just all really fucking sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're not like they were last year and the year before where they, I think,
Create a shit ton of turnovers.
create a lot of turnovers. Yeah.
Well, many years.
And their special teams was always
Like right
good.
now, they're at -2 in the turnover margin. If they finish at minus, this will be the first time they've been negative since 2014.
Wow.
Jesus Christ. And we're like the worst in the country.
We're like minus 1,000.
Now there is one
No,
thing
we are like over the last 15 years, we're like the worst in fucking Power 5.
By like 50.
by a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
They do also average over 5 tackles for loss per game, which is pretty fucking high. They've got 59 on the year.
It's pretty solid.
So
Nebraska's got to be reasonably close to that. What are we averaging? Close to like 4.7, something like that?
I'd have to look it up.
Tackles for loss on
Yeah.
for our defense are allowed.
Defense
Takeaways, like tackles
for
for
the
loss.
season.
We have 73.
We're not that far behind them.
We're ahead of them.
Yeah,
We're ahead of 'em.
they have 59.
There we go. We're destroying them. Fuck them.
Yeah, but yeah. You're right. That'll solve it.
No, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with their corner being out, especially with our most efficient passer that we like we said last week was our first game of the season over 60% passing.
The secondary is still their strength of their defense, even without DeJean. Their secondary is, I mean, as good as their linebackers are.
Yeah, those two linebackers are
Their
insane.
passing defense is really fucking good, and that's contributing to their secondary. Their secondary is still really good.
Got it.
So
It's it hurts losing DeJean, but it's not like the end of the world for them.
yeah. So that's what I have on their defense. They're just really fucking good.
Fair. Were you going to say anything else about them losing that guy?
It's a big loss. I mean, he's a, top 10 first round draft choice.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's
a big ding then.
That's a big ding.
And it's not just defense, special teams returning kicks.
That's a big ding.
Yeah, but like I said, I think it sounds like a system, so much more than a guy.
Yes.
And it's just been a system they've had since like 2014. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, the big thing is the defense doesn't have takeaways like they have the last handful of years.
No, they just don't let shit happen.
That's going to be that was my big question coming into this show was where do they look like compared to last year as far as takeaways? Because that was my big fear. Last year by the end of the season, takeaways weren't something we were as worried about as we are this year. This year that seems like if we can just get, like you said last week or 2 weeks ago, we can get 4 or 5 of those 29 or 30 that we have. We can get 4 or 5 of those back. We're an 8-win team. Mm-hmm. So you look at this Iowa game and how close everything seems like it's going to be just because of the defenses. We can win the turnover battle or at least make it even. Like you said at the beginning, whoever wins the turnover battle is probably going to win the game. That's going to be a big thing.
Which means we really need Purdy to stay in the game.
Yes. What do you got on offense?
Their quarterback that has filled in the last half of the season. He's a big motherfucker.
He's big.
He looks like a
he fucks big mothers, or he's a big guy.
No, he looks like a square rolling around on the field.
He's 6'3", 260.
Jesus.
And it was kind of funny in last week's game.
That's me playing quarterback.
In last week's game, it was funny.
You're a big motherfucker.
The announcer said that he's been described as having a really good fastball. He just doesn't always know where it's going.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's fair.
Okay.
On the season, his completion percentage is like 49%, but the last 3 games he's been over 60% all 3 games. So he's gradually picking it up, playing much better the last couple of games. He only has 5 touchdown passes on the season, but only 2 of them have been thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. So 3 of them were behind the line of scrimmage and they went for a touchdown.
Right.
But so they don't really stretch the field.
That's kind of our specialty for shutting that shit down, too.
They don't stretch the field as far as scoring a touchdown and all that stuff. But running backs, they've got two decent running backs, but they're not.
They look like they've picked it up on the running game just a little bit over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they're not really a threat out of the backfield to catch any passes. Both guys only have 13 catches on the season combined. The offensive line has been pretty close to the same all year long, but they actually are starting a new center for this game against Nebraska. Their starting center all season, Logan Jones, he left the game early last week and is not even listed on the depth chart. So they're going to be starting.
That possibly going to be a bigger deal than we think it is?
Well, he's a 4th-year sophomore, so again, kind of like a Chuba Purdy. And
4th-year sophomore.
Yeah, I know.
Pisses me the fuck off.
Sounds weird.
He did start 2 games last year, but he hasn't really played much this year. He played like in 5 games this year, so it's not like a ton of experience or anything like that. But
when I was looking at their offensive line, it looks like this might be a game where, because of the style of quarterback play and how slow he is, as you mentioned, he's Matt back there. Sorry, you're slow. How big and slow he is, he doesn't have wheels on him at all.
no.
And they've given up a lot of tackles for loss and sacks from what it sounded like. Maybe not a lot, but a lot more than what you're used to seeing with a high-end Iowa offensive line like we're used to. And it seemed like this was a game where if Hutmaker and Ty Robinson can get in there and do what they do, they should be able to get to the quarterback several times in this game and wreck some shop.
As far as their receivers and / tight ends, last week when we were talking to Josh and we were talking about our receiving core, and you brought up one of the pipe questions was, will we have a receiver over 500 yards, and we're not even close. And then I asked you guys if you knew who our 3rd receiver was as far as receiving yards, and it was Marcus Washington, who hasn't played in half the season.
Yeah.
Their top pass catcher is their tight end Nick All. He has only played 7 games. He's been out for he has season-ending injury a handful of games ago, and he's number 1 in their receiving room. So, and their 2 tight ends that they had to start the season has played a combined total of 10 games, and they're both in the top 5 of receiving yards. So
they're going to throw the ball around.
It's not very good. It's nobody to really like.
Who are their tight ends? They had All
and Lachey. Sorry, not Lachey.
Yeah, Lachey played a lot last year. And
Eric All is the transfer from Michigan.
Yeah, Eric All is the transfer from Michigan, but I think Lachey was hurt for part of the season.
For this year, he only played the first 3 games.
Yeah,
and then he's been done since then.
Yeah.
So this isn't really an offense question, but I think it's going to be important for them this week, especially since we are awful at field position. How does their field goal kicker do? Is he any sort of okay?
Freaking missed an extra point that fucked me on my spread.
Hey,
so I was on the bad side of the bad beats on that one.
You know what?
I had him at 2.5.
That, though, dude? I thought for sure the way that Illinois has been playing the last couple of weeks, I thought for sure they were going to go down and kick that field goal and win the game. That was going to be Iowa sealing their fate, and it was going to be left up to Nebraska to keep them from going to Indy again. And it didn't happen, unfortunately. But that just goes to show how good Iowa's defense is and how strong they are even at the end of games. That seems like it's going to be the big question mark in this. Who's going to show up bigger on defense this week than Iowa or Nebraska?
I think more of it's going to depend on who plays all 4 quarters.
I think it's going to come down to 2 plays. Whoever makes 2 more plays than the other team.
You think on defense or on offense?
Well, it doesn't matter.
I feel like that's more of an offensive thing to say.
If somebody makes a play intercepting or fumble or
that's fair,
or a big sack in a situation or what, I think it's literally going to be whoever makes 2 more plays than the other team, that team is going to win.
Jed loves a big sack.
There were
or even a bad penalty. You know
exactly.
Did you watch the Wisconsin game?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so there were so many times we had breakaway dudes headed to the quarterback, at least 4 for sure, that looked like guaranteed sacks. But he made one quick little move, and he was a shifty dude who was very experienced, great pocket awareness.
Yep.
Got out of it, and it would have been TFL sack, but winds up positive quarterback scramble.
Yep.
Shifty, quick little anything is not in this quarterback room.
That's not in this quarterback room at all for Iowa. And so that's one thing that gives me big hope, because I think even with a backup center, I think this Iowa offensive line is going to look a lot like what we saw last week. They're not going to be amazing pass protectors. They're not going to, that's not the scheme that they were recruited to defend. And it's going to be an opportunity for those big guys up the middle to eat.
So as far as their place kicker, he's 17 of 23. From inside of 40 yards, he's 11 of 11. Outside of that, he's 4 of 8 in the 40s and 2 of 4 after 50.
So what do you think about that, Jed?
What?
As far as the offensive line?
The thing is, this matchup is literally terrible offense against a really good defense on both sides. It's about as even as you can possibly be.
It's probably going to be a first team to 10 points wins.
Like, everything that you say that Iowa can't do against Nebraska's defense, I think equally that Nebraska can't do on offense against Iowa's defense.
Does Iowa have disruptive defenders up front like what we do?
No, I wouldn't say so. But
that's my big thing is the difference is the playmaking ability on the front end of our defense to get in the backfield and disrupt what Iowa does.
But for me, there's a big difference there. So it's like, do they necessarily have the disruptors to get in the backfield? No, but they've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the entire season, and they've only given up and I have it somewhere on here. It's in one of my questions, so I'll have it. But they don't give up 10 plus rushing yards either. Plays.
So they don't give up big plays either.
No. So it's kind of like they might not have disruptors to get in the backfield, but they've still got a wall right there at the line of scrimmage.
Are they fast on the back end, or are they just strong?
They're just efficient. That's what Iowa does. They just play good, smart football.
Yeah,
well, maybe not good. That's
there
a little
to
bit
be
of a
in your
stretch,
way.
but they play smart football.
They play 9-2 football.
Exactly.
Every year.
You know, a couple of years ago when we were so-called the greatest 3-9 win team of all time, they were 10-2. They were probably the worst 10-2 team of all time. But guess what they were?
We talked about that then.
They were 10-2.
Yeah, they were on the right side of that column.
So
I'd much rather be that.
exactly.
Yeah, they're the. Are they 9-2?
They are.
Yeah.
They're 9-2.
They are the worst 9-2 team.
Yeah.
Yeah, still
9-2, 6-2 in conference.
Yeah. So
And
it's like
they played a lot of close games.
they just play fundamental smart football.
It's hard to not play close games when you're only scoring 17 points a game.
It's ugly as shit
but
football, but it's still fundamental smart football.
The weird one that stands
Yeah.
out to me, and I have not gone back and watched any of their stuff so far over the last few weeks, but the Rutgers game where they held Rutgers to no points, 22-0 in that game. That's the only impressive game really on their entire year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have anything outside of that. They've lost like the Minnesota loss to me was weird, but it also was that game. Like that game was weird in general. It was a lot like the Nebraska Minnesota game. I didn't understand the Rutgers game, but the rest of it all looks very, very Iowa. They're 3-point wins.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Well, and they'll play an ugly, stupid game the entire time, and then suddenly they'll magically find a play to win the game.
that's what happened in the Illinois game.
It's like,
I watched.
Where the
second
hell
half
did
of
that play
game.
come
That was
from?
Crazy.
and all of a sudden they make one fucking play, and they won the game. It's like, you gotta be fucking
we go
kidding me.
again.
That's why I'm saying it's basically, for me, whoever makes two more plays than the other team.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.